Hello and welcome to Throwback Thursday. Today is March 9th, and I'm always so excited when I get to come on here and talk about Throwback and 11:30 Central every Thursday. But today I'm very excited because we have a friend of mine that we've been virtual friends for a couple of years now, and her name is Helen Snell, and she is going to tell you her story. And I have a question for you. Are you stuck? Do you need to know how to tell your story? After you listen to Helen, even if you don't think you need help telling your story, you're probably going to realize, oh, my story needs some help. My bio needs help. My writing needs help. I'm telling you, Helen is your girl. So we are going to go into all about storytelling with Helen in just 1 second. I do want to remind everyone that this is Throwback Thursday, March the 9th, 11:30 a.m. Central, and storyteller, entrepreneur, family, rare perspective of the world. That would be Helen Snell. Before we bring Helen on here live, I want to remind each other that we are really striving to get our Google reviews up. If you have not left us a review, please go and give us a 5-star review. If I've ever done business with you, bought something from you, been on one of your shows, if you have purchased something from us, been on a Monday Mojo or Throwback Thursday, or we have communicated in any way, shape, or form, leave us a review about it. It doesn't have to be about purchasing something. It's all about the round picture, starting at the top and going around, because there's a lot to a business. It's not just about receiving or selling something. So go to Home Sweet Home Treasures and leave us a Google review. Every business needs it. Thank you so much. So I am going to start introducing you to Helen. And again, we did talk about your story. What is your story about? Helen Snell is a storyteller. Do you have your story together? Do you really know what your story is? What is it really about? Do you have everything filled in that you want your story to make others feel, make others see you in the way that you want them to see you? Helen focuses on storytelling to develop biographies and profiles, web content, and marketing materials to provide entrepreneurs with their voice and ease the sales process to smoother conversions. She also provides ghostwriting for blogs, books, and legacy stories. Her passion project is telling stories for the underdog. And I know you're saying, what do you mean? What do you mean telling stories for the underdog? Well, we're going to tell you. This translates into blogging and speaking about sustainability, special needs, the truth, and compassion. All these things revolve around her family of 3 children, too quickly advancing into childhood. All these things revolve around, I want to repeat this. All of these things revolve around her family of 3, too quickly advancing into adulthood. And I know when you have your children into that adulthood, they think they're adults. They're really not adults. They think they know everything, but they don't know everything. But you know what? We're here to guide them. That's all we can do at that age. So I want to continue with Helen. Her youngest, Tori, has provided Helen with a rare perspective of the world. Tori has Down syndrome and has brought Helen such joy in its simplest form. Although days are full, there is a quieting of the soul and an alignment to being fully present and experiencing gratitude through her daughter's eyes. She has contributed a chapter to a book for special needs families for the love of children. And as an international best-selling author, as a co-author in the One Habit book series and Uncover Your Light book series. We're going to talk about this book just a little bit later, but I wanted to touch point on it. Helen's audacious dreams include developing a business model for special needs adults, running a plant-based B&B, and running a foster program for senior dogs somewhere on the water. And now we are going to bring Helen up, and she will talk about Helen and as a storyteller. Welcome, Helen. And I am so glad that you are here with us today. And just to get your story told and help others get their stories started.
It's a pleasure to be here. I have to say, just watching all of those slides and listening to, those audacious goals that I have, it just got my tummy all going like, oh my goodness, I got to get to work on that stuff. I want to start this conversation with this idea of Throwback Thursday. When you presented it to me, the whole idea I had was I'm going to throw myself back to almost 24 years ago when my daughter Tori was born, because that literally changed everything in my life. And I have to say, for the better. A lot of people who raise special needs children, it's a tough job. You could run into a lot of obstacles with friends, with the school system, with health. We've experienced some of that, but there has just been such an overarching joy that she has brought into my life. And myself and my other kids often talk about the fact that we couldn't imagine what our family would look like without her in it. So just because this is a throwback, I thought it would actually be kind of fun to talk about the change that she made in my life, and really almost like the impact that she had to turn me into a storyteller and a writer. So LaDonna described in the introduction that there is this quieting of the soul whenever I'm around her. And I think back to times when she was little and we would go for walks in the forest or in the park. And her focus was always on something so different than everyone else's. It was, instead of looking at the falling leaves, she would find a twig. Or instead of, looking at the waves lapping on the shore, she would find some, old tire that had washed up, and she'd want to go look at that. So she just kind of changed my perspective on everything. And I found myself just focusing in on her little world. So I thought this would be a fun exercise to go back and think of the last, as I said, almost 24 years that she's impacted my life, and the things that she has done to help bring my business where it is. So I made the decision when my older two children were born that I was going to work close to home. I had been traveling to the city near our home. So I changed careers for them so that I could be closer to home. then when she was born, it changed things even more. I realized that, putting her into a daycare program wasn't the same kind of option as my other kids. Um, I began to work from home at that point. A lot of us have been kind of transitioned into working from home over the last several years with all of the craziness that's happened in the world. Um, but I did that for her, for my family at that time, because when you have a special needs child, you don't tend to plan for the day to day. You have to plan for the long term. So I will let that transition into the book that I actually provided a chapter to, called "For the Love of Our Children," and that it was kind of a pivotal moment for me in my career when I wrote that book chapter, because it was the first time I allowed myself to kind of personally be put out there in print. So it wasn't about me so much, it was about my daughter. But it really brought a lot of things into focus for me, that, the career that I had was because of this long lasting childhood, really, that she was going to have, that she still is in. Um, my whole family lives in quotes from Disney movies because of her. That's probably never going to change. Um, but the whole idea of even where I live now is based on the fact that I have to be thinking of what she's going to do after I pass. Hopefully that's not for a while, but those are the kinds of decisions that you have to think when you have a special needs child. And so she actually was what really launched my entrepreneurial career, because I knew that I needed to have a flexible schedule. I wanted to be home. I wanted to be available to her and my other kids, but I still needed to have a life outside of being a mom. So my whole journey into storytelling began when I joined a network marketing company. And I found that I kind of needed to have my own story within their brand. It's a health and wellness brand called Arbonne International, vegan, sustainable products, all things that spoke to me. But I found that, how would I say, the rhythm, the kind of nature of the company, as with most network marketing companies, is all about winning trips and being recognized and, getting to the highest level. And that didn't feel like the authentic me. What felt like me was talking to people about what's broken in our healthcare system, what's broken in our food system, the things that we can actually do to help ourselves become healthier and stronger. And so I had to kind of find my own brand within that brand. And that's what actually launched this whole idea of storytelling. I I realized that my story was important, and more important than the story of the company that I was representing. The interesting thing is, when you find your story and you understand who it is that you are at your core, that travels with you through whatever business you may have. So if you are transitioning in business and you think you need to write a whole new profile on LinkedIn or whatever that may be, you probably should only have to tweak it a little bit, because the main basis of that as an entrepreneur should be who you are, not what your business is, not what company it is that you represent or anything of that nature. Um, so, so I will say that understanding your story is is really about looking at your whole life. It's looking at your family. It's looking at your interests. It's looking at, I'm distracted right now because I'm looking out my window and it's a beautiful, beautiful, brilliant, sunny day. I want to be outside. So that's part of who I am. That's part of how I show up on social media. I talk about walking in the winter when all of my friends want to fly south and go on a trip. Um, I feel like that part of you, when you can connect with that, really helps you show up. It helps you introduce yourself at a networking event. It helps you develop content for social media. I have coming out soon, actually, through Instagram. I have a 30-day storytelling social media challenge that's going to be coming out. It's free. It's a great way for you to kind of think of all of the different ways that you can tell stories from your everyday life. I also do a live on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time on Instagram, where I talk about something in the news or something that's happened in my life and how that story can transition into some kind of content that you can use in your business. I usually like to try and give a couple of other business examples besides my own so that you can see how that process works. So I think that's probably the best introduction into story is to start with your own. But just know that when you dig into that world, storytelling itself has a proven scientific connection in the brain that if you tell a story during a sales conversation, it can be a personal story, it can be a story about someone else, it can be a story about a customer's experience, it doesn't matter what it is. As soon as you tell a story, the fear in someone's brain that naturally happens when they're presented with a sales presentation of any kind, it diffuses that fear and it changes one to be more curious and be more interested in what you have to say. It actually makes an emotional connection. And if any of you have done any digging into sales, sales are made based on emotion. They're not based on research. They're always based on emotion. So making those emotional connections are really important, and you can learn more about that by working with me, by taking courses in storytelling yourself. And so I appreciate this opportunity with LaDonna, as I said at the beginning of this, that it just allowed me to kind of sit back and think of all of the wonderful experiences I've had over the past couple of decades through the eyes of my daughter, the experiences that she has brought me to, and the kind of the wide-eyed wonder that she continues to have for the world that has been contagious and has put me in that same position. One of my favorite things about ghostwriting for other people, or even writing bios or whatever it may be, I need to get into your world. And so I love to learn. I have that wonder of all things as well. And so it's just a great privilege to be able to help people with that story, but also to feed something in me that needs to be fed, which is this kind of childlike curiosity that she has continued to help me hang on to. So I don't know, LaDonna, I can leave it there. If you have any other questions that I could answer, I'd be happy to do that. I just kind of feel like I'm walking down memory lane a little bit today, and I'm not sure how much more I should share. Do you want to jump back on the screen with me, LaDonna?
Okay, so I want the audience to really realize that you are here to help them in any kind of writing that they need to be helped with. And I think you've done a great job with that today. And, I have a question for you. And I brought up the slide about the book. I know that you have been in other books as well, but For the Love of Our Children, I
Mm-hmm.
know that probably really touched home for you because it was more about your daughter than you said.
Yes.
But when I looked at the index of the book or to find the chapters, it says there is no normal.
Mm-hmm.
And that really it shined a light. It really did for me. There is no normal, and I bet in your life there really isn't. But can you tell us, why did you pick that as your heading or your title?
Sure. I think, yeah, thanks for asking that. I actually forgot what that title even was in that book. So thank you for asking me, because, yeah, it was very deliberate in choosing that. And it has a couple of a couple of reasons for that choice of the title. I think anyone who doesn't know a family who has a special needs child often goes by what we would call labels, right? So my daughter has Down syndrome. So all Down syndrome kids are happy. All Down syndrome kids are, chubby and lazy. All kids with autism have social dysfunction, whatever those labels may be. And so I actually tell a story in the chapter that Victoria was actually in school for several years with another little girl with Down syndrome. And she was not a happy kid. So it doesn't, I feel like those labels are not fair. But I also told the stories in the book too that my other two children, especially in terms of our school system here in Canada, they didn't fit the mold either. So there was no normal. One of my kids was slow starting to read. The other one was very advanced. She was identified as gifted in the school system. And so they both struggled in their own way because things weren't normal for them either. So whether you have a special needs child in your life, whether you, have children of any sort, everyone is an individual. Everyone needs the same things. They need love and acceptance and purpose. And I just felt that title was so important, and the message of that chapter so important, because of how easy it is to just dismiss a child who is a slower learner, a child who may come to school who isn't clean or doesn't have lunch because of their situation at home. There shouldn't be a label to that. Every child should have the opportunity to learn and to grow into the best version of themselves they can be. And so, that's kind of why I needed to put that message out there that every child is different. I purposely did not join any Down syndrome networking organizations when Victoria was younger, because I didn't want her to be a Down syndrome baby. I wanted her to be Victoria. I wanted her to live her life the way she was going to live it. And we've done that from day one, and I think it has served her very well.
I really appreciate that when I read that, I'm thinking, she's right. I say that every day. We have two daughters, same mom, same dad, 3 years apart only. But there was never a normal day when they were younger. There's still not a normal day, and they're adults. I have four grandchildren. They're all different. I
Yeah.
have some that learning is no big deal, and she's just achieving everything. But her personality is white, you know? And then you have one that learning until he got lazy. And I'm just telling this so people really realize you don't need to label children. You don't need to label anyone because we all are our own self. I was a slow learner when I was young. I didn't catch on very quickly at all. I did not make great grades. And now I have a grandson that struggles so much, but then his brother, achieve until he got lazy. And this one, we're just jumping up and down if he passes. And again, I'm just saying this because every child is different, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like we have a 3-year-old grandson. He is just the joy of our life right now, having three teenage grandchildren and then the 3-year-old, he
Yeah.
still wants to take pictures and love on us and hang out with us. The others don't.
Yeah.
But again, it's just their age, it's where they're at, it's who they are. They're
Mm-hmm.
all different. I'm the oldest of four. We're all four different.
Yeah.
There's nothing similar to us, except maybe a little look here or there, but we're just all right, Helen, we're
Yeah.
just all different. And I
Yes.
don't know why so many people will label someone Down syndrome, autism, this, that. Well, then we have to label everyone.
Hmm.
And why?
Exactly.
You
And
know,
even within that, like again, I felt within that book, because there were stories from various families with special needs children. Every story in that book is also different. You know, there are I'm trying to think off the top of my head, there might be five kids in that book that were represented, boys with autism. Every one of them went through different therapies and found different successes for what worked in their lives. Every parent made different choices. So, you know, it just was an interesting thought that came to me when I was first presented with the opportunity to write that chapter. And I thought, you know, I need to do this because um, I felt from the time that Victoria was born that she was just going to be Victoria and she wasn't going to have a
absolutely.
label. And she
Absolutely. That's
has
why we give
surprised,
names,
and
right?
yeah,
We give
she
everybody
has
a
surprised,
name.
and yes, you know
That
what?
should
And
be our
that's
label.
it was actually purposeful choosing that name for her. We had a different name picked out, and when she was born, we decided that the whole idea of her being victorious was very important, and so we changed her name to Victoria. And she continues to surprise and impress me all the time. She's a Special Olympic swimmer. Um, she can rap and sing and dance, and she has so much creativity. And I hope that I passed a little bit of that creativity on to her. It's a joy to watch her grow. It really is,
That's right.
because I'm
That's
just
right.
allowing her to be who she is.
Absolutely. And you know what? And I'm going to go back to our label should be our name because aren't we all special needs somehow, some
Oh yeah,
way, in some form? And
yeah.
I just don't like you, I don't like that labeling
Mm-hmm.
because of that, because we
Yes.
all have our own special needs in some way, shape, or form.
Yes. You know what? That's
And
actually a perfect way, LaDonna, to tie this back into the whole idea of story, because your brand really should be your name. It is about who you are as a person. That's what you need to put out into the world, because if you are well, let's just use the example. You have a platform on selling on the spot where you have a marketplace where people can come, network, sell their stuff. It's a fantastic platform if anybody hasn't tried it. But you do it differently than anyone else who does it because of who you are. You might follow a format. You might, you know, work under the direction of the leader, but you do you. And that is what's so important in storytelling. People buy you. They don't buy your service, they don't buy your product, they buy you. And that's why the storytelling part of it is so important. So I kind of love that we've wrapped that all back around to your
yay,
name
we
and
did it.
why we should be identified by our name, because that's very, very true.
Yes, I agree. We are, you know what, Helen, every time I talk to you, we are so similar. I just find out more and more about you, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I love to smile. Every time I see you, you're smiling. I'm not saying I'm happy all the time, but
Oh, me
I
neither.
try to be as much as possible. I try to find the greatness in everything, no matter
Yeah.
what it is. If, the greatness of it, because there is greatness in everything. We just have to
Hmm.
dig a little harder sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually just interviewing someone this morning for a book that I'm working on, with her, and you know, she was talking about all of these terrible things that happened to her, in my opinion, in her corporate life, backstabbing, and people, you know, being jealous of her, and being held back because she was a woman, all sorts of things. And yet her attitude was, I'm so thankful for my corporate background because I learned this, because I realized that, you know, people were actually jealous of who I was. She had such a fantastic outlook on it because And that's what's actually made her successful, is because she wasn't dragged down by the negativity that she could have taken from that. She just took every opportunity to learn something and to grow and to become the fantastic leader that she is now. So
That's awesome. That is
yeah.
awesome. And those are the stories I love to hear, is how you were here and now you're here and how much happier you are to be there. And that's the way I live my life every day, is just trying to, I'm not trying to build a corporate ladder. I'm just trying to build my happiness, my
Yep.
family's happiness. And that's a different picture for each child, for each adult, for
Hmm.
each husband, each wife, each mate. It's different. And
It
your
is. It's
chapter's
all based
different, but
on
make you
values.
happy.
Yeah, we all have our own value system. So, even as you said with your own siblings, and I find this with mine, I'm one of four as well. We we were all brought up in the same environment, same parents, but we all have different values in our lives, and that's what actually makes the choices of what business you do, as to how you do your business, as to what brings you joy. And you can't expect that someone else would ever 100% align with you, because their story, their values are different.
Exactly. I always say, you are you, so be you. Do the best job that you can do, because
Exactly.
it's true. It's you're only you. Nobody else can be that. Even
Nope.
if you have a twin, you're not going to be perfect in line all the time, you know.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
well, Helen, I want to thank you very much. I'm going to put you in the back just for a second and we'll return. We're going to do a sneak peek of homesweethometreasures.net.
Awesome.
Yes. Let everyone know just a few things that we have already on the website for you to look at. We have many, many other items as well, but here's just a couple of items that we can show you. Here we go. Look at these beautiful plates. Here is a lot of 3 bracelets. This is a stretch bracelet, some stone, some not, but the marbling on the stone is just beautiful. Here's another stretch bracelet. Oh, it has a clasp. That's right. It's a magnetic closure. It's not elastic. I'm sorry. Then you have the double bracelet. It is elastic. Look how pretty that is. And no, it's not real pearls. Look at the bling bling. All the bling bling is intact. And those bracelets didn't come together, weren't made together, but we married them together because they look great together. You can wear them together or separately, and they are gorgeous. Here's a glass candle from Libby that sits in water and oil. Gorgeous, new. And then we're back to the palm tree plates. They are beautiful, they are vintage, and they are ready for purchase and shipping. All right. Thank you so very much. We're going to bring Helen back, and then we have just a couple more slides to show you, and then we will be off the air so you can finish your lunch. And we thank you for sharing your lunch with us today. I want to remind everyone that March 21st is World Down Syndrome Day. I didn't realize that until it was brought to my attention from Helen. And if you go online and you do some research, you will find so many things that evolve around Down syndrome. And we will bring that back up on one of our other episodes closer to the 21st, because I found out so much information just by Googling. I love Google. Sometimes it doesn't steer us in the right direction, and other times it's brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. We also, my next selling on the spot marketplace that we briefly talked about is on March 14th at 10 a.m. Central. just hook up with me on Facebook or LinkedIn, and I will get you the link so that you can reserve your spot. The best networking, I believe, in my heart, or there is through selling on the spot marketplace. It's a platform that no other, just like no other. I haven't found anything else like it. Um, all right, Helen, did you want to add anything before you leave?
I did not. I just want to thank you, though, for bringing up World Down Syndrome Day. I thought when you had asked me to be on the show, that was just perfect alignment because that is this month. And I was going to throw back and talk about my daughter. So I appreciate you sharing that with everyone. There's a beautiful community of people with Down syndrome, and I'm inspired by stories that I hear from them every day.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. We're just going to give you our goodbye slides, and we will see you next week. Talk to you later.